Science, one of the points here is science isn't absolute because we cannot get to many of the absolutes yet. We can theorize how we can test and poke, but we can't get to absolute zero. Absolute zero to a human does not exist. Absolute zero is where there is no energy, no motion, no movement, no particles. Particles as we know them almost can't exist because the binding energies would be overcome by the zero or the black energy or dark matter or whatever it is they're supposing these things are. So if you think some of these are absolutes, then it gets confusing. I've done a few other videos on boundary layer physics where you change from one environment to another. A simple consideration of that is going from a liquid to a solid phase in an element or a compound or whatever you're playing with, right? Ice in the freezer freezes water. You just did a phase change. But you want to do a phase change on metal, you're talking thousands of degrees to convert the metal into a liquid, unless it's a special metal, because some of these metals that we talk about in nuclear have vapor pressures that are very near atmosphere. So as soon as they have a chance to escape and become unbound, they will. That's why we keep water around nuclear fuel rods. Besides the moderating effects of water, right? Moderated water. The water that's in those cooling pools has to be ultra high purity stuff. You can't even dump bottled water in those pools. You contaminate them. Those pools are measured, metered chemistry to keep the rods exactly how we think they're supposed to be kept, right? If they're exposed to air, metals in those rods actually start dissolving. See, one of the nuances of atomic decay is heat has nothing to do with decay rate. You can't change decay rate with heat. That's counterintuitive. Because if you boil or bake something, right, you can bake it to nothing and boil it down and it all disappears. That's just not how these other things work. So it gets very confusing very quick. I pointed to left a link to a detector response curve that we're working with from a Geiger counter. The detector responds differently to alpha, to beta, and to gamma properties. If it's not shielded, it will react to photons and electrons as well. So I'm trying to make this simple. I know maybe half. I'm comfortable with half anyway. I know a little bit more. Making this simple is their game. That's not why I'm here. There are folks that catch up and keep up with this, some that try, but true professionals don't come here. You'll notice that. I did this for years in another forum and another format, and they just don't come around. There's a few reasons for that. One is the bombastic conversations with non sequitur questions that really are pointless. They're drawing your eyes away from the prize by going, and people know that. Another is credentials. When you're in those professions, you speak from those professions, from the language, the terminology, the common understanding that your peers have in these things. To take that outside of your professional world is a huge challenge, and you can stumble and make a fool of yourself. Or you can come off as an asshole, or you can be found wrong, or you can be forced to explain the rest of the conversation and put it into perspective. So, yeah, another rant, kind of, but this is just stuff we know. We do. We have been doing since long before I even thought about it. And then I learned about it. And then I did it. So go do it. But don't make nuclear simple. Don't play these silly games here. It just further shows the weakness of nuclear science and how poorly the education received is. You know, I'm a metrologist. I understand instrumentation and measurements pretty well. Out into chromatography and some of the chemistry and chemical sciences, but I avoid because that's not my strength. But that gas chromatograph, that FID detector,